Welcome to my very first Sew With Me video. And also, it's probably my last. Hi, my name is Sarah and my channel is knottygnome Crafts. My channel is all about sewing and styling a handmade wardrobe. Today is my day to share the dresses that I made for Project Dress a Girl, which is a challenge that's hosted by Madi of Madi Sews. Now, undoubtedly, this month your feed has been filled with videos talking about the challenge, so I won't go into all of the details, but I will definitely link Madi's channel down in the description box so that you can check out all of the details for yourself if you've not heard of it. To sum it up, the sewing community is creating dresses for little girls around the world, and we are sending them to a variety of satellite charities so that those dresses can be distributed to the girls who need it. The dresses that I sewed this month is a pattern that I've made before. It's the Oliver and S Popover dress. And I've actually already done a full review on this pattern, which I will link up in the cards and down in the description box. So I knew I was making this video and I didn't want to repeat myself, and I've actually already talked extensively about the other dresses that I have been creating throughout the year for the charity. So I was wondering to myself, what will I do with this video? So as I started sewing my dresses this month, the idea popped into my head that I should just do a sew with me. Now, unfortunately, I didn't actually have this idea until after I had already cut out my fabric, so I do not have any footage of that, but you guys are sewists, you know how to cut things out, you don't need me to show you that. Now, I do want you to bear in mind that I've never made this kind of video before, and I did find it quite challenging. This is 100% not a sew-along video. It is not meant for instructional purposes. I just wanted to give you a little glimpse into how I do things, because I do think it is interesting to see how people construct their garments, because everybody does things a little bit differently. Now, because I had sewn this pattern before, I cut out all of my dresses and then I actually sewed them sort of assembly line style. So I did all three dresses at the same time, and you will see that in this video. Now I'm going to send you right to the sew with me portion, but make sure that you come back at the end if you want to see the full reveal of all 9 dresses that I made this year for Project Dress a Girl. I'll see you in a bit. These are the pieces that I'm using. You have your front and your back, and you cut 2 of those out of your main fabric. Then you have 2 yoke pieces. You have 2 straps cut on the bias. And then I'm adding inseam pockets. You cut 4 of those. Next, we're going to sew the yokes to each of the main body pieces. So I'm going to start in real time so you can see how I do this. I like to chain piece as much as possible to avoid having to cut long threads. I learned this from quilting, so I'm just going to start out with this first one and show you in real time a little bit of how I sew. I do stop and remove pins as I go. That's just how I roll. And in case anybody is interested, I have a Gnome Horizon 7700. I bought it in 2009. That's the machine that I use. Okay, now let's speed it up so that we're not here forever. You can see that as I am approaching the end of this one, I will stop and then just feed in the next piece. And then I kind of go back in once I get a little bit of space, and I'll cut the threads in between so that I don't have stuff falling off the back of the table. And now we're just moving ahead to the end. So now all 3 yokes have been sewn to the body pieces. So now we've pressed under the seam allowance on the yoke piece, and we're going to fold it over and press that down and get it ready to sew. So I have it pinned here, ready to go into the machine. So now I am top stitching the yoke down to the right side of the garment, and just like before, I'm going to do this for all 6 of the dress pieces in tandem, and I'm not going to cut the threads in between until I am finished. Now it's time to prep the side seams. I'm just putting them through my serger without cutting off any fabric to get them ready so the seams are all nicely finished on both sides for all 6 pieces in a row. And I use a Baby Lock Celebrate, which I just got a few months ago, and it is wonderful. Next off, I am serging the pocket edges so that they are all nicely finished, just like for the dress itself. And as you can see, I just let them all pile up, and I do one right after the other. Now that our side seams and our pocket edges are finished, it's time to sew the pockets to the garment. And just like before, we're just doing them all in a row so they're done all at one time, and it's just the same step over and over again until you get through all 6 dress pieces. So these seams were a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and I've pressed it away from the garment. I've pinned the fronts and backs together, and now it is time to sew the side seam, and you go around the pocket with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I did totally forget to mention it in the beginning, but for the most part we are using 1/2 inch seam allowances. It was just for the pocket opening that we did the 3/8 inch. So I am just stitching these side seams of the dress together and stitching around the pockets, and I'm going to do that for all 3 dresses. After this, I'm going to clip the seam allowances so I can press the pockets towards the front, and then I'm going to press the other seam allowances open. Now it's time to do the hem. I have my seam gauge set at 5/8 of an inch, and I'm just turning under the hem and pinning it so it's ready to press. Now what I like to do is I like to quarter the hem. So I start at one seam, then do the opposite seam, and then I stick pins in the center of my garment, and then I put pins in between each pin. And what this does is it distributes the fullness. It doesn't matter so much on this because it's a straight line, but if you were doing a hem that was curved, it would help distribute that fullness so that you don't have any excess that's sort of getting more and more off as you go around. This way should keep it nice and evenly distributed all the way around. Now that I have pressed the 5/8 inch hem, I'm just folding up the fabric to meet that crease, and then I'm sticking in a pin to get it nice and flat. And I probably should go to the iron and press that down before I sew it, but real life here, I often don't do that step. I'll just take it right to the machine after pinning this down and stitch the hem down completely, and then I press it afterwards. So here I am stitching the hem, and I do that for all 3 dresses, and like I said, once I go all the way around, I will take it to my iron and press it down so that the hem is nice and crisp. So now I'm trying to demonstrate how I use my Clover bias tape maker to do the bias straps. And I realized that my arm is in the way, so you can't even see what I'm doing, but that was the best that I could do, so I apologize about that. But I do like using the bias tape maker because I do find once you get it started, it's a lot easier and faster to do it than doing one step at a time. So that is how I make my bias tape for the straps. So now I have pinned the straps to the garment. We're ready to sew it. I like to use lots of pins. That's just what I'm more comfortable with. So now I'm going to take it to the machine and stitch that down. Now I am stitching right in the fold of that crease of the bias tape in order to attach the binding to the garment. And again, I'm going to do that for all 3 dresses. Now I have pinned the binding down and I'm ready to finish up the straps. In order to get started here, I'm using my little hump jumper tool, which just prevents the fabric from getting sucked down into the throat plate, and then I proceed to finish up the straps. The very last step that I have is to sew on the labels that I got from Knotty Sews, And that's it. This is the end of my Sew With Me popover dress by Oliver and S, and I will be back to see you in just a moment. Don't forget to keep watching to the end of the video so you can see the full reveal of the dresses that I have created for this project. Welcome back. I really hope that you enjoyed my Sew With Me. Please comment and let me know if you enjoyed this type of video, and make sure that you hit the like button because it'll really help me know if this is the kind of content that you want to see. And although it was quite time consuming to film and edit, it's something that I would be happy to do more of in the future if that's what you like to watch. Now I'm just going to insert a clip of all 9 dresses that I have made for Project Dress a Girl. I started back in January, and every few months I've just been making a handful of dresses so that I would have a nice big roundup to send to Madi in September. So now that we're here, I can box up all of the dresses that I have made and get them sent off to her. So thank you so much, Madi, for hosting this challenge. I think that it is a wonderful endeavor, and thank you to each and every one of you who've also participated in the challenge. I feel like we're all doing a wonderful thing. In case you missed my review of the Oliver and S popover dress, I'm going to link that here so you can check it out after you've watched this one. Thank you so much. I appreciate that you take time out of your day to watch my videos, and I will see you again next time.